doing that as we go. Um, it is linked in the general chat. Jory linked it yesterday. There's recordings and decks, and we'll continue to add to it as the day goes on. So, without further ado, I am going to pass it off to Samantha Smith, who is going to get things started today. So, Sam, I will turn it over to you.
All right, good morning, everyone. Happy Friday and happy International Women's Day. To introduce myself, I am Samantha Smith. I am the Assistant Director of Talent Acquisition here at Carnegie. And without further ado, what better way to kick off International Women's Day than to have Alana Forte as our host today? So I would love to introduce Alana. Alana Forte serves as the Senior Vice President, Chief Compliance Officer, Chief Cultural Officer, and Legal Counsel at Jacksonville University. As a trained advocate, Alana considers her transition to higher education seamless as she went from advocating for her clients to advocating for students. Alana admits while practicing law is stressful, basing my career on the decisions of a 17-year-old student may be one of the greatest challenges of my life. So Alana is the forward-thinking and compassionate guide. We are so excited to have Alana kicking us off as the second day of the Carnegie Inside Out conference. So I will go ahead and turn it over to you, Alana.
Thank you, Sam, and happy International Women's Day. Happy Friday to everyone. It's great to see you all. I'm excited about our time together today. And so today we're going to explore generational differences. We're going to promote some self-discovery and improve our cultural competency skills. I think it's a phenomenal time to be together. So when it comes to our agenda, we're going to divide this up into 3 chapters. One is majority narratives. The other one is generational influences. The last one is cultural competence. And we will end the day with some questions and answers or any insight you would like to have or feedback. I think feedback's a gift. We're going to kick today off with a mindfulness exercise. And so in the true spirit of Inside Out, I'm requesting we start our time together focusing on the inside. So this is going to be some imagery. I will request that you close your eyes. I saw some, and so if this request brings you any sort of pause, goosebumps, anxiety, feel free to turn off your webcam. I know this is against our day house rules, but it will be brief. It's just a quick demonstration. We don't really need to see you for you to visualize a few scenarios, and this is best done with your eyes closed. So if you're comfortable, please close your eyes, whether your webcam is on or off. So it's the first week in December. You are in the waiting room at the eye doctor. You're trying to use your vision benefits before the end of the year. To your left, there's a pilot in uniform commenting on the weather. It's terrible outside. I hope this weather clears up. The storm is terrible. There's inclement weather throughout the entire country, and I have to fly a red eye tonight. Someone comments across the way. We're hoping for better weather too. We're celebrating our 25th anniversary this weekend. We need sunshine. The couple looks at each other. They join hands, smile. Aw, says the person that just checked in. I'm the keynote at the FinTech conference in town this week. I hope the weather doesn't require us to cancel the event. There's a lot of people coming in town. The nurse opens the waiting room door and calls your name. Come on back. You may open your eyes. In the chat, please list where you live along with any inclement weather that may have come to mind. And Sam, I may need your help with the chat.
All right. So we have a lot. We have, let's see, Massachusetts, snow, South Carolina, hurricane, Boston, blizzard, North Carolina, snow, Tulsa, Oklahoma, ice storms, Ohio, rain, Los Angeles, heavy thunderstorms, Washington, D.C., rain, Indiana rain, Cleveland thunderstorm, Arkansas tornado, Cincinnati, Ohio snow, freezing rain, Georgia rain, Georgia tornado.
No, that's helpful. No, so this is great. So whether your weather was snow, rain, hurricanes, tornadoes, it's often dependent on where your location is, what your surroundings are, what your geographic location is. I'm sure that if it's not where you are now, it might have been a hometown growing up that that had you imagine snow, if that's not the kind of climate you're in. This is normal. Our brain associates words with meanings that are relevant to us based on our experiences. And so now I'm going to ask you to think about the people you encountered. Was the pilot a person of color? Was the pilot a female? Was the couple celebrating their 25th anniversary two men? Was the keynote fintech speaker a person in a wheelchair? Was it a woman? Was the nurse a male? Was the nurse a person of color? Probably not. And why? Because of society's majority narrative. It dictates how we view the world and the images we assign to roles. Our norms are different depending on what influences our day-to-day. Now, I'm a Black female whose father is a pilot. And when I did this, not even I visualized a person of color in that role. See, the human brain, it acts like a computer, and it uses all the images that we see day to day, and that's the shortcuts it takes when we make decisions or inferences. Now, Dr. Susan Fisk started this exercise. She's a Princeton graduate, and she works at Kent State as a professor, and she studied how intergroup relations and stereotype threats and bias influence what comes to mind just in how we see ourselves and how we see the world. Unfortunately, the brain activity that kept the human species alive for millions of years is the same brain activity that keeps us from achieving equality today. We often fear what we don't know. We often promote majority groups. The human brain instinctively reacts when encountering the unexpected. And she proposes that if we dare to examine our own behavior when faced with the unexpected, the world would be a more inclusive place. So what I just described to you is a majority narrative. So this is chapter 1. As communication experts, you are fully aware of the power of storytelling. Quick plug and commercial break for Voltaire, who will close out this afternoon with harnessing the power of a story. But today we're going to talk briefly about storytelling. For many of you, it's an inherent part of your role here at Carnegie. Understanding we have a set of values and beliefs and assumptions that shapes our vantage point and how we tell and influence our stories. When you think of your worldview, consider your family, siblings, parents, grandparents, hometown, only child, your school, your schoolmates, any activities, sports, talents, your religion, your ideologies, your political influences. All of these influence shape your perspective. When you say yes or no, right or wrong, good or bad, these are shaped by the upbringing and what we individually associate as your standard set of norms. These narratives can emerge from various sources on social media, to the type of education and where we went to school and all of our cultural perspectives. And they often allow us to majoritize or marginalize or exclude or include the experience of ourselves or others. And this impacts not only the circumstances we encounter, but also the groups or underrepresented groups. When you think about your narrative unconsciously, we bring in our own frameworks. And I want to give you a brief example of how this could just impact your day-to-day, and I saw this recently. So think of something as simple as a job interview. I'm interviewing John, who is wearing a wedding ring. John is amazing. John's talented. He's smart. He's funny. He's creative. And he fills a gap that we need on our team ASAP. I want John to join our team. So I'm like full court press recruiting. John mentions that his family's relocating to our area, our local area, and I think this is a plus. As a cisgendered woman, a dominant narrative combined with my attempt to recruit would be, oh my gosh, I'm so glad your family's moving here. Your wife will love North Florida. The First Coast has wonderful beaches. But John's wearing a wedding ring because John is married to Jack. And my majority narrative just placed John in a very tough spot during an interview. Now, John has a choice. John can correct me, but he shouldn't have to. And if he doesn't correct me, he's also in an equally compromising position. My majority narrative just eliminated inclusion and belonging. Now, there's ample evidence that encountering something fundamentally different than when we share something fundamentally different, it makes people feel alone. It makes people feel like they can't be their authentic self. And my advice is to ask questions before projecting our own family and influences onto other people. And so why is this important? I love this statement, so props to everyone at Carnegie that formalized this. But at Carnegie, we believe in the power of difference. And we believe in the power of differences, which include generational gaps, technological skills, talents, different abilities, culture, religion, political ideology, language, communication style, preferences, gender, sexuality, geographical differences, neurodiversity, race, ethnicity, and all the other differences. Because at Carnegie, we embrace humanity. We embrace you. So how do we become more self-aware of our narratives and our influences? I'm going to, again, ask you, for one, type in the chat, what are parts of your identity that you're aware of, that you actually consider a dominant part of your personality and the things that are important to you? Is it being a parent, a sibling? Is it your culture, your religion, your ideology? Which are the most salient for you? And Sam, are there a few that have come in?
Let's see, we have being a mom, my religion, my gender, being a woman, Asian American, a parent, position in family, being a pet mom.
So I so relate to being a pet mom. And so I'm gonna say sometimes when I'm with others who are also a pet mom, I expect them to have the same joy and passion around that identity. And sometimes they don't. And so I should not assume that someone's life revolves around their furry friend just because I do, even though it's a part of my identity. So what parts of your identity are privileged, or are there any parts of your identity that are marginalized? And how does your sense of identity shift based on context and settings? Sometimes I know I feel very privileged just based on my education and how that influences my day-to-day life. And other times I feel marginalized in certain spaces, and it's just based on other factors. So depending on our settings, whether it's home, family, church, at the gym, we may feel more strong in our identities or more weak in our identities, and that shift is natural. What societal influences shape your life? What are your blind spots and biases? Societal shifts have shaped my life a lot, especially recently being in Florida and being a daughter of immigrant parents. There are things that are taken into conversations and weights. Does that happen to you? How do you manage those things? And how do you not burden others with that, but you're able to share and invite others to share their identities? How do you feel about people that are different than you? How do you bring that into conversation? Those are all things that shape our identities, and they're also impacted by our generational influences. So did you all know there's currently 5 distinct generations that are active in the global workforce? 5. It's the first time in history. So all these generational influences kind of group personalities by birth dates. And so independently, things may not apply to you. And I'm not trying to stereotype. That's my little legal disclaimer. But I will mention our generational influences. There are things that happen in your life based on your date of birth to where you are now that impact how you make decisions, your attitudes, your independence, your work ethic, your ability with technology, how natural those things come to you. So our issues ranging from foreign affairs to sociology, age difference and attitudes really have allowed social scientists to experiment on the workforce and how we build teams. And a diverse workforce is so important. They have found that diverse work teams, when it comes to these generational groups, have really made influences on how people make decisions and also how they acknowledge their fear. So we're going to take a look at these. Traditionalists are not on the generational differences, and it's because they're less than 5% of the workforce. But if you look at baby boomers and their ability to absorb technology based on their date of birth when there was not technology and how that is advanced, that's how they make decisions. It's how they enter spaces and meetings, oftentimes more in person, maybe showing up in the office, where Gen Xers, based on their date of birth, have transitioned into more of a technology space at a younger age. This allows them to value their time a little bit differently. They really value their friendships and treat friends like family. And I say they as in me. They sometimes have issues with large institutions just based on what they've seen in their life and the buildup or the destruction of things that have happened. When I look at millennials, they are often a generation that are exposed to so much information that it's sometimes difficult to focus based on all the resources that they've had in their lifespan with immediate gratification. They always want clear transparency, where boomers sometimes tend to be a little bit more vague and ambiguous. And then Gen Zers have never known a day without the internet. They've never known a world without Google. They're definitely more into the technology and helping with how prompt and efficient their work is organized and resourced. As we look at this, I ask you to take a look at what our fears are. It might be the assassination of JFK. It may have been September 11th. It may have been school shootings in Parkland. Our fears are tied to our generational gaps. And those fears show up in the workplace with your colleagues. They show up in how we travel. There are even jokes about how certain generations need to exit quickly, so they always have a rolly bag as opposed a backpack as opposed to like a rolly bag. So there are definitely personalities within the generations. Technology has also been a digital transformation that's overwhelming to some generations. And when we're thinking about the workplace, I think it helps to know where we are and where you cross over and you're able to bring your teams together and highlight how their generation may positively impact the team and the communication. One of the things I often do as a higher ed professional, I try to bring generations into my decision-making that are students. They're my customer and I need their subject matter expertise. Where they're looking for me to be a mentor, I use my students to mentor me in this field. And at Carnegie, as we connect students with universities, it's probably also important to call on students to help with decision-making and how they gather information, how they make their decisions, and how they like communication. So we're going to do a quick poll. And so this will be coming up. While the poll pops up, I wanted you to know that the shift in our workforce will really allow more generations in the workforce, but also 48% of Gen Z are racial or ethnic minorities. Diverse management increases revenue by 19%. And the employment population of people with disabilities have gone up to 22.5% of disabled people are now in the workforce. This has gone up drastically over the last 10 years, and I hope it continues to go up so we can continue to provide accommodations that excel in the workforce. So as you're doing your survey, It's 5 quick questions. Sam, how's that looking?
Let's give it about another 15 seconds or so.
That's great. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and close it out and share results.
Great.
All right. Alana, do you want me to read these out for you?
I see them. The first one, the face-to-face communication, that's typically a sign of a traditionalist, just based on the work span, and it goes into baby boomers through email is baby boomers and Gen X, and Gen X and Gen Y do email and text message. And then what types of reward motivates you the most? Money. Money is usually a Gen X trait. It also goes with Gen Y. And then it looks like vacation, Gen Y, title and recognition, often baby boomers, and compensation at a job well done. I'm so impressed with the 22%. That's often more of a traditionalist. What's important to you? Your experience is respected. That's traditionalist. Do it your way and forget the rules. That's why. But I think a lot of us are rule followers, so it may not apply. Be valued and needed in your workplace, Gen X, and working with other bright and creative people. That's 23%. That's baby boomers. Which type of leadership style belongs to you? Chain of command is typically baby boomers or traditionalists. Self-command, X, collaborate, Y, top-down management, often traditionalists. And then the last one, which best describes your interactive style? Team player, that's my favorite, that's D. And participative, entrepreneur, individual. So in that order, it's baby boomers, Y, X, and traditionalists. Now, I don't want you to think that you don't have traits outside of a certain generational group, but collectively, when they run this test on populations, they find patterns, statistical patterns that are grouped by date of birth based on what those influences have triggered. So now we're going to roll over to chapter 3, which is cultural competence. So developing cultural competence helps us understand, communicate with, and effectively interact with people across cultures. It gives us the ability to compare different cultures with our own and better understand the differences. Now, unconsciously, we often bring our own culture, frame, or interpretation to any situation, whether it's holiday, the food that we eat, the music that we listen to, the shows that we watch. Oftentimes it helps to expand social circles, especially at work, to learn about different backgrounds that are different than our own and allow authentic relationships to form to broaden our skills. Travel helps with this as well. Engaging in intentional, curious, honest conversations, and also just being a resource and answering questions without bias or harm. Reading a wide range of sources to better understand current social issues from different perspectives while paying close attention to the credibility of each source also helps. And then resist confirmation bias by critically reflecting on information that both aligns with and challenges what you already know or believe. And then commit to intentionally increasing your awareness, your knowledge, your skills related to the stakeholders that you value most. This could be on diversity, inclusion, equity. It could be in the books that you read or your social circles. So cultural competence. it's really just the ability to work respectfully with people from different cultures while recognizing one's own cultural biases. Cultural humility, on the other hand, is the ability to recognize our own limitations to avoid making assumptions of other cultures. And I think we've all been in situations where we have biased others just with good intentions, but it doesn't stop the bias from happening. It sometimes happens with age. It happens when we date ourselves. Well, you know that, well, you're too young to know this movie, or I'm an old soul. And it sometimes eliminates the person that you are talking to from being their authentic self, because experience is not always valued in a date of birth or a generation. It also helps when you're thinking about cultural competency to be thoughtful in the words that you use. I noticed in my own emails, I would always say, look forward to seeing you soon, or sorry you didn't hear back. But those are based on senses. And it's better to say, I look forward to connecting. We can touch base soon. Things that may not impact others who don't have the same senses that I do, in a way that allows everyone to be productive. I think we also use eye contact in Western culture to be attentive, and we measure someone paying attention to us, or honesty. But in other parts of the world, it's considered disrespectful to look somebody in the eye. And so knowing that as a cultural competency makes us more aware that somebody we're working with is not being disrespectful or rude. And eye contact doesn't mean that people are not paying attention. Those are some quick examples of how being more culturally competent may enlighten our conversations and how we view things. Now, I know we, in the higher ed space, especially in communications, we are always using the right fit. But as our homegirl Brene Brown says, inclusion is actually the opposite of fit. And so we use this term a lot because we want students to thrive, be successful, and be their best selves, right? But when we're using it, it infers that there is a wrong fit, as opposed to maybe someone who can fill a gap or broadening their horizons. And I like to look at fit more of like a Venn diagram. So there's some overlapping that allows communities in the workplace or on a college campus to thrive and do better and have more of a 360 vantage point. When we use this in the hiring process, I had a situation this week where the manager said he wasn't the right fit. And the search team, they were offended because they felt like the person was the most talented, they were smart, they were creative, and the subculture of the right fit was just a monoculture. And so while it may be rewarding for employees to have other like-minded people around them, it doesn't always allow us to do our best work and produce the best thing for our clients. And it often reinforces a toxic system. I actually want to give a shout out to Christine Kramer, who thought of this recently and is working on ways to revamp this at Carnegie. So it's a part of our mantra and what we do as we work to be more inclusive and less monolithic. So culture fit could be unintentionally reinforcing cultural biases and stereotypes. And I ask you to consider banning culture fit in your hiring initiatives and instead use values add. And at the very least, it may help just to say fit. Fit might work better than the right fit. And so that's just some things to consider. If you like to see how it works on an XY axis, the low belongingness, it often creates exclusion. And then as we work to assimilate, so we take on the patterns of the groups that we are in, we feel a sense of belonging, but we don't necessarily feel valued for our authentic selves. And oftentimes requiring people to assimilate or be the correct fit does not get you their most creative, thriving, energetic selves. And then on the other axis, when we look at differentiation, people may be comfortable differentiating themselves, but they feel like they stand out. They feel like they're outside of the box, and they don't feel the necessary sense of community that can impact the results that they turn in. In addition to that, it often manifests in teams where somebody has the answer to a problem, but they're not sharing it because they feel different and they don't feel comfortable in sharing what the solution or what the real need is. And then there's the goal, inclusion, where you, your colleagues, everyone you work with can show up and be their authentic self. It doesn't mean there won't be conflict, but it will be healthy conflict and vast discussion, and there will be a breadth of ideas and brainstorming, and that's the ultimate goal. So I wanted to demonstrate this with, I know we often use Myers-Briggs, just it's something we're familiar with. These are all 16 personalities. And if we were looking for the right fit on my team, we would be in that top right circle here. What that does is require everyone to be intuitive and a feeler. So everyone on my team in the Office of People and Culture, they're all feelers. And I am the only thinker. I'm way over here on the left. I'm way over here. When you're making decisions, you want the thinkers and the feelers to collaborate. You want the conversation to happen. During COVID, there were a lot of decisions that happened where there were reductions in workforce, and you were working with people on your team that had to have furloughs and different things of that nature. Well, sometimes the feelers will make a really nice, loving, caring decision, but at the end of the day, it may not allow you to accomplish the goals and the mission of your organization and your teams, and it may ultimately hurt you. And so if you're able to combine people who may not necessarily fit in the circle and use a Venn diagram to overlap, I guarantee you the results will be amazing. I will be honest, sometimes it takes a little bit longer, but the results will be amazing. So we're going to go to the Stroop test. So if everyone will please come off mute. Okay, so I'm going to proceed to the next slide. And when I do, we are going to read words left to right. And while we're all in unison, we will keep going. Once it gets a little out of unison, we will stop. But left to right, and then we'll go down, left to right, and then we'll go down. Is everyone ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Go. Blue,
Green, red,
Yellow,
green,
green,
red,
red,
green,
blue,
red, yellow, green, red, blue, yellow, green, blue, yellow,
That's good.
green, red, yellow, green, blue, red, yellow, blue, green.
Okay, so the first three words, you all were perfect. Like everyone was on point, same page. So this test is named after Dr. Stroop, who discovered a strange phenomenon back almost 100 years ago. I am now going to ask you, when I go to the next slide, to do the same thing, but instead of reading the word, I'm going to ask that you say the color of the word. Are you ready?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Go.
Blue,
Green,
green, red,
blue,
green,
blue, yellow, red,
blue,
yellow,
Yellow, red,
yellow, green,
You can stop. Please.
Red, yellow,
green, yellow.
Okay. I want to say great job, but instead I'll just say like phenomenal try. I think you did wonderful. This Stroop test, did you find it difficult or more difficult? And just by time, it took probably 3 times as long to actually say the color than it did read the word? The reason why that happened is because we are trained to read. And the color recognition happens, but because your mind had to conflict with identifying the color and reading the word, there is this confusion, and it deferred to the reading. The reading took priority because it's more a part of what you do on a day-to-day basis. And the words themselves, the strong influence of reading took over actually saying the color. It's hard because the process which the brain uses to come to the decision is mentally established based on however long that you've been reading. And so I only say that to say that when we think of our majority influences, when we think of our storytelling, when we think of our cultural competency, we should recognize that the things that we learn when we watch the news or we're out in the community may not be the only way of viewing things. There are other vantage points that may be correct, but they may not come to our mind instinctually or initially. And so we will close this in the spirit of Inside Out the same way we began. So if you can type in the chat what you see. Sam, did people say bird or lion?
We're getting a lot of lion, a lot of bird, owl.
So if you saw the bird, you're correct. If you saw the lion, you're correct. If you see an owl, you're correct. Oftentimes, society teaches us that what we see is right and what someone else sees that's different is wrong. And what I'm inviting you to do today is think about perspective, and that what you see is justified, a part of your story, and it's accurate. But somebody else's perspective is equally important, even if it's not a dominant narrative. And so today, I thank you for being a part of our culture of belonging. I think it's important to allow respect, welcomeness, and values. Developing cultural competencies help us understand, communicate with, and effectively interact with people all around the globe. I challenge you to celebrate your identities and also acknowledge your narrative and also the experiences of others you spend time with. I challenge you all to be lifelong learners and globally minded citizens. And I thank you, Morgan, Steph, and Joy, for making this happen. And Sam, thanks for being my tag team partner. For additional resources, I would love if you took the implicit association test. If you do, Slack me. I'm so interested. It's very similar to the Stroop test, but it really measures the amount of bias that we've learned over the years just by being functional members of society. And for additional reading, I recommend a few of these and the books that are on the left. I know we have a few minutes if anyone has any questions, feedback, if there's anything that you want to share, I would love to hear from you. And I can't see the chat. Sam, if you could help with that.
I don't see any questions.
Okay.
Just a ton of really, really positive things, saying thank you, amazing presentation. This was great, truly eye-opening. Getting a lot of love in the chat.
And I love you all back. It's great to see
I have
you
a
all.
quick question.
Oh, sure.
Where can we access the IAT online?
Yes, the IAT is online. The link is in the slides and I'll make those
Okay.
available. But there it is. It was created by Harvard. Thanks, Eric.
Awesome.
Let me know how it goes when you take it. It's phenomenal.
Will do. This was awesome. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
All
Well, you all
right.
have a great day. Enjoy your breakout sessions.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.